And action! We are live. What is going on, gang? 7:53 a.m. Monday to start the week. The video is up. We had some difficulties, had to update my laptop. That's why it wouldn't go up the first time. So it took like an extra half hour, but we did it early enough to the point where I don't think it's going to affect really anybody. So the video is up for the MLB today. There's no WNBA tonight. There's a one-game slate tomorrow. If you're familiar with the WNBA, usually Mondays are an off day for every single person. Tuesdays are usually a slower day, and then as the week goes on into the weekend, you'll get your bigger 3 to 5 game slate. So welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this, I'm shooting this originally, or I guess I'm live streaming this originally at 7:53 a.m. on the East Coast. So if you're watching this later in the day, for the most part, it's going to be just on playback, right? So I just wanted to hop on. If there's any early risers, I understand that this is extremely early, but take any questions because I do have some time before starting a next project, which is I'm excited to announce shortly. Not right now though, but working on another project today to start this week. A good start to the week to do that. But yeah, I mean, I touched on some things. I researched some things since shooting the video, which it's only 8 a.m., but that was 3 hours ago already. The benefits of waking up early is to get some more work in before having to start other things for this slate. So it's a 12-game slate. It's interesting, and you'll see as we go in it, and I kind of keyed in on it on Twitter, that the top range is for the most part fadeable to me. The top range, I mean like 9,000 and above. Now, not 100% fading them all, but as of right now, the more that I digest it, yeah, I'm fine not getting to any of that, whether it's because of matchups or whether it's just because of upside more so in this 8K range. What's going on, Raz? Top of the morning to you. Hope you're not tuning in from the East Coast or the West Coast because then you're up 5 a.m., but at the same time, that's a pretty good rise. So, good morning, Raz. How's it going? Yeah, so WNBA not on tonight. I want to say a couple of things just in general. One, people have been buying the projections for WNBA and they are liking them a lot because there's no other information a lot, for the most part, out there for WNBA. And I can say I've played 5 days straight of WNBA. I've only lost one head-to-head contest. And I'm in over 100 a night in head-to-head contests and as many as I can get into. And I'm quickly realizing now that if you have any sort of projections, he's in Virginia. Yeah, okay, well, still early morning. Top of the morning to you down there. But yeah, if you have any sort of projections for these WNBA, and look, you can't watch a WNBA game. They're not on streams online. You can't watch them. So if you're worried about playing WNBA because, oh, I don't want to watch these WNBA games, it's boring, I don't know WNBA, trust me, I guarantee you 99% of people playing DFS and having success in it through the WNBA are not watching the games or have any real interest in the games for the most part. I, for the most part, don't. It is a lucrative spot where there's a lack of information. It is a very inefficient market in the DFS space that few people will take advantage of because there's no information out there. If you take the time to try and find that information and work through it, you're at a great advantage. So, sure, I love the WNBA, but the reports are so bad. Yeah, the reports are so bad. So Raz says he likes the WNBA. I actually enjoy it. I like how it's a small league. It's interesting because it's only going to keep expanding, you would think. But yeah, the reports are so bad. There's no information anywhere, and they hired 12 beat writers who, for the most part, they're not getting information. It's not their fault that they're not providing information on Twitter. The Athletic hired these 12 beat writers, one per each team. There's 12 teams in the WNBA, but they're just not getting this information from the teams, which is the team's fault. You have to be translating injury news early. You should be translating starting lineup news, which for the most part, that's only happening from like, I'd say 40% of the teams, like 3 or 4 of these teams in the league are actually doing that. So it's an issue, but yeah, as long as you can check for the most part as best as you can, as long as your players are playing that night. So far, I've been looking through my head-to-heads, and I think 50% of them have goose eggs. People are starting girls who aren't playing, or virtual goose eggs, players getting like 3 or 4 points. Like last night, Dietrich started in the WNBA, who for Canada, who's just a player on the Seattle Storm, who she just started. She was a 0.1 fantasy point per minute player. 0.1. I had this in the show. I said, don't play this person. I put it on Twitter if she somehow draws this start. She goes out there, she scores like 4 fantasy points in a matter of like, I don't even know, 20 minutes or so. She's terrible. She's very bad at basketball. She's on the court for, if anything, just to guard a player on the defensive end, nothing on offense. So it's things like that people don't have information to. They don't understand this stuff, and they put players in their lineups and pretty much burn their money when you don't have to do that. So that's one thing with the projections that I found very interesting. And the second thing is I'm going to restart up the podcast kind of, and the podcast is just what it's been. It's taking these videos, the long form videos, the day-to-day breakdowns, and putting them in a podcast form. Now, I can't do every single day just because I would have to be paying hundreds of dollars a month in podcast hosting space, which I might look into something else instead of that. But I do want to get more so in the podcast realm of covering things that I would say matter more on a high level, right? You have the YouTube channel from my content, and I'll get into the MLB, especially if people start asking questions, but I think this is good even if you're watching on the playback to just kind of have in mind. You have the things on the breakdowns on the YouTube channel, right? You can listen to it as a podcast kind of just by keeping the YouTube player up in your pocket, on your way to work, whatever it is. But I think that from my podcast episodes and sort of inspired a little bit from Manny Laura, his stuff is really good. These short podcasts called the Study Minute. You should definitely check it out. But I want to do something along those lines, but different. I want to do more short form content, maybe around a 15-minute podcast daily, and keep it in the realm of daily fantasy sports, of course, and fantasy sports in general, and just overall top-notch. Please do it. I tune in whenever I'm free, says Raz. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, the podcast is something that I do want to start. I mean, I do have a podcast right now, the Sal Vetri Show. It's up on Spotify, iTunes, whatever you want to do. But I'm mainly putting strategy podcasts on there. And today I put the MLB breakdown just because I want to refresh it, get in the process of putting stuff on there. But it would only take me really an extra half hour or so of prep in the mornings, and I think I can make that up while the videos upload, of trying to develop some kind of content around a podcast each day. If you check Manny Laura's stuff, you know that that's great. I don't want to be repetitive of what he does. He tracks players from the night before. He looks at just overall things in the DFS space that are happening. I like that. But I would love to have more of a sit-down podcast form. You have things like the Daily Fantasy Edge with Adam Levitan, which he interviews people from the gambling streets, DFS streets, legislative streets in terms of sports betting. And it's great. It's great longer form content. I want to somehow, and this is what my challenge for this week is probably going to be on a lesser note, is going to be figuring out a mix between those two, because both platforms and both forms of content are incredible in terms of the amount of value you're getting from them if you're interested in this. I do want to have, and I will continue to have, these day-to-day breakdowns because I do play and I do think there's a lot of value in them, and I just enjoy doing it, right? I enjoy putting the stats together and breaking them down like you're seeing over my shoulder right now if you're watching. But there will be, and I guess that's what I was going to announce, but I have to sort of get the structure down, there will be a more frequent podcast as well coming out. Now, I don't know if I'll do daily podcasts while I'm also doing daily content. That might be a lot. But sort of a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, or a Tuesday, Thursday schedule around the podcast. Looking at the week as a whole might be a nice in-between. But yeah, that's where I'm looking right now. A podcast is on the horizon, just as much content as I can get out there. In the meantime, it will just be kind of uploading my YouTube videos in the podcast form, because I think that that's also very important, to be getting as much content into different avenues as you can and just dispersing your content. So that is what's on the horizon in terms of my stuff. The WNBA is just something that I wanted to hit on again. Extremely profitable. You should be getting money in there. I'm telling you right now, you will win money playing cash in low stakes single entries. You will. You might not win it the first night, but if you play a week, you will win money profiting. I could almost guarantee that if you're just putting some sort of work in, literally uploading the projections and making sure your players are playing, and the podcast, which I'm open to taking, whether you're listening to this, if there's 50 people that view this, or if there's a couple hundred, leaving a comment if you're at this point still. Hit me up on Twitter at SalVetriDFS and just let me know. What would you like to see out of a podcast? I don't want to be doing these 2-hour-long podcasts. I do like the idea of interviewing people in the industry as much as I can, and maybe get it into a shorter form, 30-minute, hit on all the things that are really important, save time for them, make sure they get everything they want to say, but more so keep it around the 15 to 20-minute range. Interviews are somewhere where I think podcasting is obviously the main thing for, but I'll have to figure out how to keep that in a shorter format. So that's where I'm at. Let me know what you would like to see. Let me know who you would like to see and sort of the context of some of these interviews, because I'm going to start reaching out to people. Raz says always and only cash. Yes. Only cash for WNBA, honestly. Look, there's just no tournaments. They'll have the 10K or the 5K to first tournaments, but it's similar to where you are going to be facing another 5,000, 6,000 people. I do think, though, in the WNBA, if you're playing all cash on the night, and you should max it out. And a lot of the times, if you're not getting in there early and setting your contests in the morning, or literally like for Tuesday slate right now, you might not get full contest down just because there's not a lot of people playing. But if you're putting in $50, $51 head-to-heads, $52 head-to-heads, $53 head-to-heads, for the most part, like 75% of your action will get taken. If you're putting it out early enough, more of it will be. But just get down as much as you can. Get into all the single entry GPPs, because then you know no matter what, if you have a decent play that night, and you usually will in terms of your lineups production, you'll be winning. But I do think getting into those $10,000 to first, $5,000 to first in WNBA does make some sense, because I think that literally 75% of the season, and not the season, 75% of the people in these WNBA pools they're terrible, and they're just not looking at anything, and they don't have projections, and they're going off of recent game logs. And for the most part, a lot of those recent game logs are factoring in just weird things, such as maybe injuries, girls playing overseas now, just things that you really don't know what's happening with the minutes for the most part. And it's tough in general to identify minutes, but there's ways to get better at it. So yeah, I do think playing the 10K to first is worth it, because yeah, as long as your cash lines are doing fine, which they usually will, you'll win all those. And then just putting one $5 or $8 entry into the head-to-head, you're going to at least hedge yourself out. More times than not, you probably will win or cash in the $10,000 to first, as long as you're using stable projections in the WNBA. And then you at least give yourself that ceiling to, if your cash lineup goes off, and yeah, I'm saying just put your cash lineup into that, because cash and tournament lineups in the WNBA are so similar. But if your lineup does go off, you have the upside of winning something huge. Raz says NFL season is going to bang, about a month away. Yeah, I'm excited. NFL preseason, I've never played NFL preseason, but I'm going to be playing, and I'm going to try and cover it to the best of my abilities. Most likely might just do it in more of a fun manner, the preseason, right? Just first look videos, showdown slates, nothing data really intensive. I'll try, we'll see, but for the most part, it's the preseason. You get a bunch of rookies and guys who really aren't even going to be in the NFL and get cut. So it's just more of a fun thing. And yeah, obviously it's the NFL, so there's going to be a lot of attraction behind that. So I'm excited for that. So yeah, that's where we're going right now. Green Bay first game, hopefully they start off strong. Yeah, Raz, you're a Bears fan. I'm a Packers fan, so we might have to make a side bet on that one. Yeah, they start Thursday night, the first time the Super Bowl team is not playing on that Thursday night, which is definitely interesting. So yeah, cool. That is where I'm at just overall in terms of content coming out right now. Very excited to keep going on that realm. We are in a very niche spot. Not only are we in the sports space, which is its own niche, we are in the fantasy sports space, which is its own niche. We are in the daily, I don't know why my emails pop up. We are in the daily fantasy sports space, which is even one below that. And then we're on Draftkings for the most part, which is even within that. So it's very small in terms of the attraction. I want to sort of grow that out as much as possible. But for the MLB today, not a lot of things have changed. It's only been 3 hours difference, but some have, in terms of, like I touched on a little bit earlier. It says, sadly, I'm a Redskins fan. That is sad, but there is some hope there, I would say. But not since you got Clinton Dix. Clinton Dix, I can't believe how highly they are grading out Kaha there. Maybe a change of scenery is what he needed, but not only when he was like sandbagging it on the team when he just didn't want to be there. I wouldn't mind a little side bet, though. Yeah, we'll get away from the sports books juices. I'll side bet that Clinton Dix doesn't have as good of a year as Amos. I mean, I don't know how we judge that. PFF grades, I guess you can judge it off of PFF grades, but for the most part, I don't trust PFF. You can trust them 80% of the time, but a lot of their grades are just atrocious. They had Zeke graded out as one of the worst running backs in the league through like 5 or 6 weeks into the year. Must have been an error, but at the same time, that's what that is. Yeah, left my house up, he says. Yeah, so Sirocco, Berrios, Castillo at the top end for baseball today. Right now, not going to get to any. Really, none of them are attractive based on their matchups and based on the upside at their price points. I guess Sirocco would be the guy that I would go to the most because he limits the damage, but he just doesn't give you that upside at a 10-5. I'm still in this area where Lance Lynn is sort of this fringe play to me, but at 9,500, I think based on the fact that I'm looking right now, I'm probably going to want to pay up on bats. Just because a lot of the guys that I want to start my lineups around, for the most part, is like Mike Clevenger at $8,700, who I'm very excited is back today in a matchup that might scare people off with Texas's power. But keep in mind that they are still missing Joey Gallo, which a lot of that power, slowly they're coming down to below 200 as a team ISO, and they still strike out. And Maeda, I talked about liking him against the Giants today. Yeah, it's a beautiful matchup for Maeda. The upside for Maeda strikes out around 30% of righties. He does have this upside. He's at $9,000 flat, and honestly, for the matchup today, he should be around 9,700 on a slate like this. You're getting value there. You're getting value from Clevenger, who's, pitched in 2 starts, injured his back, went for 30-plus fantasy points in each of those starts. That's not something that you're going to continue to get, but I'm sure that you will get somewhere around similar upside as long as he's coming back and healthy against a team that does strike out. And by similar upside, I mean, I'm not shocked if Clevenger goes for 8 Ks today. He might only pitch 6 innings. He might not give up any runs. So, yeah, 8,700 is way too cheap. And then, obviously, Patrick Corbin. I imagine from the Awesome streams later today, from any content that you trust in the MLB, you're going to be seeing a lot of Patrick Corbin popping up everywhere. And here's the thing. Let's hold the phone a little bit. He's too cheap. I mean, there's no debating that Patrick Corbin should not be cheaper than, honestly, Yanni Chirinos, Wade Miley, probably Joey Lucchesi, even Zach Wheeler, Lance Lynn, you could even argue. I think he's way too cheap. I would rather have Mike Clevenger, to be honest with you, on this slate based on matchup, based on overall upside. Maeda, the pricing difference then comes into play. But let's not act like Corbin hasn't been god-awful. let's not act like there's not some things going wrong with Corbin, like his hard hit percentage coming up, like his walk percentage coming up, his strikeouts against righties going down. All of these things, when righties are making more contact against you and your hard hit percentage is going up, all these things are leading to his poor play. Now, I want to break down into the numbers more this afternoon and see if there's any actual concern. But that being said, $8,200 for a guy whose ceiling is in the 30s is, and we've seen it through what? 25% of his starts this year hit the 30 mark, or around there. Yeah, obviously I'm going to have severe interest in Patrick Corbin, but I think a lot of people might blow this out of proportion today, especially when you take into account the matchup that he is 100% start today. This is not like Jacob deGrom, who had a better matchup and was not pitching as badly when he was in the low 9K or the 8K range. I can't remember exactly. So, yeah. Corbin at 8,200, clearly too cheap. The guy's about to touch 7K as a pitcher who's really never been under 10K all year. Clearly too cheap, especially when you look at the range around him, like Tanaka, Fierce, and Danny Duffy are all within $700 of him. And then you have right above him Lucchesi and Miley. Like, I'd rather have Corbin over all those guys. But when you start getting into the Corbin's going to be extremely popular today, and Mike Clevenger and Maeda are there at similar upsides with better matchups, I would argue, then yeah, I start to go, okay, Corbin's probably one of my favorite 3 pitchers on the slate right now. But in terms of getting into my top 2 with a lot of ownership that he has, I'm fine being contrarian at that point. Love the guy. I think he's great. But the strikeout numbers going down against righties are concerning. The only thing in terms of his matchup that you can kind of twist and do a little bit of a spin zone on, he's striking out 38.5% of lefties. If Jay Bruce is back in the Philly lineup today, well, the middle of that order is going to be going Bryce Harper and Jay Bruce, 2 powerful lefties. Outside of that, you have Reese Hoskins, Kingery or Kingery, whatever his name is, Kingery. Is he a lefty or righty? I believe he is a righty. So you're going to have 2 power bats in the middle of that lineup. That Corbin limits power to 1, gives up rarely any extra base hits or home runs to lefties, and he does strike out. So that's nice getting through the middle of the lineup. Then obviously the bottom of the lineup is usually dusty old players, including a pitcher. So that's where Corbin's upside in this matchup can come from. But overall, the team just doesn't strike out. Overall, the team has above average power. And you factor that all into playing in Washington today, which has been hitter friendly. Yeah, I'm trying to pick apart a guy who's clearly $1,000 to $2,000 literally dollars underpriced, but I just want to kind of get it out there that I don't think he's this automatic play like a lot of people will be saying today, only because there's still other pitchers who are too cheap today, like Maeda and like Clevenger, in my opinion. If there was only one, like if Clevenger wasn't back yet today and you had some dusty old Indians pitcher and it was just Maeda, then yeah, Corbin becomes a very obvious kind of SP2, if not an SP1 at 8,200. But Clevenger kind of, I really want to get to him. And then when you take into account Maeda's matchup against San Fran, it's like, ooh, I can only pitch 2 pitchers. And on a 1 pitcher side, I might not even get to Corbin. I don't know what FanDuel's price is. So that's my hot take and a little bit more sad on take for Patrick Corbin today. I think a lot of people are going to overreact. I overreacted the second I saw it, breaking down into it a little bit more. There are concerns. Look at his last 3 starts. Look at 4 out of his last 5 starts. Look at his starts in terms of his success against righties as of late in the past month of the year. It's not good. Not sure if anything's going on there, but an $8,200 price tag is still too cheap for the upside. Probably realistically should be in the 9K range, not the 10K range. So seeing him almost touching 7K is going to be something that catches every single person's eyes that plays today, and I would imagine catches most of their brains and really probably their hearts, and they just go, yep, way too cheap, plug him into my lineups, which is not bad. He's my 3rd favorite pitcher as of right now. It's not bad. But I don't think he's this 100% lock into your lineups type of play against Philly, a team that does work the counts deep, does make you throw strikes, and he is not striking out as many righties as he has been. So thanks for what you do. Played cash games yesterday instead of GPP and WA. Went 25-0. Yes, there you go. Premier Lawn of Lake Kiowa says that he played cash games with the WNBA, stayed away from GPPs, and he won all 25 of his cash game entries. Yes, if you literally have some sort of projections, they don't have to be mine, or just take my advice and try and go from there. If you play cash games in the WNBA, and maybe we're going to make them more sharper now, but you will literally be getting, like, I'm not even kidding, the best profits you will ever receive. Now, it's tougher because not a lot of people are playing, so you just can't get down $1,000 on the night or $500 on the night. Like, you're going to be struggling to get down like $150 on the night in cash. But why is that a bad thing when you can slowly build that bankroll up? So yeah, definitely play WNBA cash games. Me saying this is giving out a secret that a lot of people probably don't want out there in terms of the WNBA space, in terms of how lucrative it is, because the WNBA is unattractive to a lot of people. It's boring. So they don't even want to go there. They're like, the WNBA, screw that. So there's an upside for us. Two, it's an inefficient market because of lack of information. So when you try to actually dig into it, most people are going to hit a ton of roadblocks. Trust me, I had to dig to deep pages of Google to find the data that I needed and then actually track my own data for DVP and things like that. There's probably 3-4 people in the whole goddamn planet that are tracking DVP for WNBA players right now for every single game. So yeah. Tanaka played very well against Tampa last 2 games. Yeah, so Tanaka for me is, if you look at his last month of the season, he's just giving up more and more home runs. Maybe it's because he just became a father or had another kid. I have no idea. But here's the thing. Tanaka's $8,000. Let's look at the price range. I'd much rather have Corbin for 82. Higher upside. Maybe not a higher floor, but if you look at the last month of the season, I'd much rather have $1,000 more Maeda. Much rather have Clevenger. Much rather even have Joey Lucchesi against Milwaukee, which is a scary matchup. Tampa Bay, Tanaka has been just getting drilled all year against lefties, and especially in the last month of the season. He doesn't have strikeout stuff, and Tampa Bay is loaded with lefties. You have Meadows, and you have Lau, and you have Kiermaier, and you have at least 1 to 2 other guys at the top of that lineup for Tampa Bay. So for me, Tanaka, it's just not there. This is not the same Tanaka from 3 years ago where the guy was going out there pitching into the 7th, into the 8th inning and getting 8 strikeouts almost every single time he went out there. This is a guy who does go deep into the games, at least when he is on. He's averaging right around 6 innings per start, which is nice. But you also have Patrick Corbin, who's averaging 6 innings per start, has much better strikeout stuffs. And based on his matchup, it's pretty much a similar matchup. Tampa Bay will strike out more than Philly, but in terms of power, in terms of especially facing up against Tanaka from the left-handed side of the plate, where a lot of the better hitters are, if not the best hitters outside of a Tommy Pham in this Tampa Bay lineup reside from the left-hand side of the plate, he's going to see 4 lefties in the top 6 or 7 batters in Tampa Bay. That's going to give him a lot of trouble. So that's where I'm going to go in terms of Tanaka. I don't really want much of him, if any. Trying to get into MLB. Sorry if I ask stupid questions. Just started playing NBA and NFL for years. Yeah, no problem, Raz. This is my first year really covering MLB DFS strictly. I was avoiding it because early on the rakes were terrible and the payout structures were the thing that were the worst for MLB. You'd finish 4th in a big contest and take home, because they're not flat at all, 33% of payouts in the contest or money in the GPPs are going to first place. They're slowly starting to listen to a lot of people, professionals, people putting stuff into their content, Manny Laura being probably a big push for this during his Study Minute podcast. And they're slowly starting to change that. You're seeing more and more flatter payout structures. What I mean by flatter payout structures, if it's a contest that has $200,000 guaranteed instead of, or let's just say $150,000 guaranteed, instead of $50K going to first, 33% of people's money in that pool going to first place, and then like 70% or 65% going to the top 10. Well, now it's first place gets $20K, second place gets $15K, third place gets $10K, fourth place is now getting $7,500 instead of $1,500. You could see the huge difference there, right? So that's why I started to get back into it. I think that the 3 maxes, MLB Cash, don't even try MLB Cash. There's a huge difference between the NFL and really the WNBA and NBA in terms of cash. It's much more projectable for the NBA. If you just nail somebody's minutes, you know their point per minute production for the most part. Nail their minutes and you will get a good projection out of them. And if you know the defense's DVP numbers, you're even better. In terms of MLB, no, you don't know that. A guy will go 0 for 4 who's Mike Trout one night and you get a 0. So in terms of cash, there's really no point for me, at least, unless you have a really good projection system that you trust, and I just don't in the MLB. I'm sure there are some, but I just don't have one that I trust. So stick to like single entry stuff. Obviously, the big tournaments will be the one that catch your eye, but if there's 50,000 people in a prize pool for MLB where you need to get 6 of your guys hitting home runs and both your pitchers pitching well, it's just even more tough for you to nail all those things and still be on top of the boards. I think the single entries, I think the 3 maxes are incredible. Now, the better 3 maxes are like $150 buy-in, but they do have some in the $10 range, right? The $3 range. Stick to 3 maxes, stick to single entries, because guys like Awesemo, who are apps, and Utico, the pros. Awesome was absolutely crushing this MLB season. It's like every other night he's winning a 50K prize pool in the MLB or the 100K. It's insane. I've seen at least 5 50+ K prize pools won by him in the last 6 weeks alone. Like 1 per week of winning at least 50K to 100K, that's pretty good. And that guy has 150 lineups or the max 30 or whatever it is in the contest that you're playing, and he has them optimized, and he's a pro. You're not going to beat him. And not only him, the other 50 to 100 pros that are also playing the same exact way in terms of a lot of lineups, you're not going to beat them in the MLB, which is just so much more difficult. So stick to single entries. Don't play cash. Stick to 3-mans. Honestly, for the most part, MLB is a cruel sport because it is so up and down. Like when you get your highs, make sure not to overspend on your bankroll. I've already done that this year. I've had some 3-4 nights in a row where I placed really well in these $150 buy-in 3 maxes, and I feel really, really good, and then I'll move up one tier, and I just lost like one of the night's winnings or something like that. It's just stupid. It's important to try and stay consistent there. Love the channel, Sal. Keep up the hard work. Thank you, Tony Papa. Yeah, Papa's, I'm not sure if you just got in here, but I'm going to be releasing more podcast episodes, trying to figure out how to exactly go about the podcast, trying to make it once or twice a week, and maybe go more interview format, but interview format from like a quick hitting standpoint. I don't want to make them an hour and a half interviews for a DFS, although that's probably interesting to a lot of people. I want to try and get more shorter form. So maybe I'm trying to do more so around trying to nail one interview a week and maybe one overview of the week in the DFS space overall, looking at top winners, looking at any news that's coming out, payout structures to educate people, just as a week recap. That's something that I'm looking at into structuring a podcast moving forward as another piece of content for a couple times a week, and then maybe we can get it into a staple podcast show each week. Let's see what else we got here. I'd say I'm top 5% in NBA and NFL, but I'm burning my money in MLB. Yeah, you're going to burn a lot of money in the MLB just because there's so few ways if you don't max entering to really profit. I think 3 maxes are one of them. I think single entries are one of them, but they obviously have a limited upside there. Your screen is pulsating, says Wayne. Is it really? I'm sorry if that's the case. Is it actually pulsating? That's not good. Might be connection. Apologize. If we were to max out a contest, what pitchers would you target? Max out a contest. So like I'm imagining you're saying 150 pitchers. I'd have 4-5 pitchers max. As of right now, I would have Kenta Maeda, Mike Clevinger, Patrick Corbin, Miles Michaelis, and then probably one more cheapie. So I wouldn't even touch the 10K range. My 5th pitcher would either be a Lance Lynn, and then you're not going cheap, so you're probably not going to get a ton of great bats because 4 of your guys are above 8K. So that would either be my 5th pitcher. If Felix Pena is actually starting, I've seen conflicting reports with Luis Garcia and Felix Pena. Maybe there's more out. I haven't looked yet. But I would probably give Felix Pena a run out there. He does have good strikeout stuff. His issue, though, is going deep into the games. Has a matchup today against Toronto, who has been hitting extremely well as of late over the past month of the season. Really, the last 2-3 weeks since Biggio got called up, their lineup has added more depth since Vlada got called up. So I probably lean Michaelis or Pena as probably a 5th. Just because getting another cheap pitcher in your player pool will allow you to differentiate from your bats, not just picking 4 or 5 guys in the 8K range, because then you're going to have the same types of lineups for the most part. You're going to have value bats. You're not going to get up to more expensive ones. I think that this Hernandez kid, who has started twice, really for the most part went 2 innings, and then he actually pitched decent against St. Louis the last time out. I don't know if I want to fall for that, to be honest with you. Playing the same team once again really quick, it could be dangerous for a young pitcher. So yeah, that's probably where I go with my 5 pitchers in a player pool. I usually don't go more than that. If you were to go more than that, I just keep picking pieces from this bottom end of the salary pool for pitching. I don't want any Edwin Jackson. I don't want any Tyler Beede. But this Hernandez kid is fine. Like I said, Pena, Tommy Malone, you could also get to down there if you really just want to keep getting. Say you want to split up 15 or 20% of your lineup sort of value pitcher, just spread it all across those bottom end guys. I think that's fine as well. Been watching you every day since I've started fantasy. Hey, Wayne, nice. How long ago did you watch fantasy? Or how long ago did you watch? Have you been watching? Or like when did you start? I love going cheap on pitchers, but I get screwed sometimes. Yeah, you're going to get screwed a lot. They're priced down there for a reason. They're terrible. They don't have strikeout stuff for the most part, which is why I think a guy like Tyler Beede, but also for the most part, Felix Pena is interesting today because he actually does have strikeout stuff. Strikes out 25% of righties at that price point is decent, right? But again, he doesn't work deep into the games. Toronto is becoming a much more unattractive matchup than we're used to out of them. But yeah, if you're paying down, Stars and Scrubs is the most common build, and it's the most common winner of tournaments. It's like 25% of the time an expensive pitcher paired with a cheap pitcher, so you can get 2 expensive bats, or at least higher priced bats, pays out. But I would just say that, yeah, you're going to get screwed probably more times than not. If only 25% of the time, and when I say only, don't take that as, oh, it's such a small amount. No, 1 in 4 times is a great strategy. If you know that 1 in 4 times, or at least history shows 1 in 4 times Stars and Scrubs wins a tournament, then that's good to know. But 75% of the time, you're getting screwed, and more times than not, it's because the scrub blows up. Otherwise, they wouldn't be $5,000-$6,000. Hi, new to this, but been playing $3 3 max on DK. Hey, Jenna. Yeah, stick to that. Three maxes on DK, if that's your stakes that you're playing at $3, they're fine. I think that for MLB, three maxes are like the best opportunity because you can get a couple of lineups in there. You can only enter one and you're still not at a disadvantage. There's upside because there's probably a huge multiplier in terms of winning that. And it's just not as pro intense, especially at the $3 level. They can't even play that level. So yeah, $3 three maxes are fine. Which sport would you say is the hardest to predict? Oh, it's baseball by far. NFL projection systems will work. They'll work okay. NBA, they'll be sweet as can be. I would either say baseball or golf. They're the two most variant sports, and I would kind of lean baseball just because it's not it's more everyday type of thing. It is. There's a lot more factors going into it. Golf, though, you can say the same. So either baseball or golf. I personally pick baseball just because if you're picking a guy like Brooks Koepka or Dustin Johnson, although Dustin this past week did not play well, but if you're picking guys in that 10K range for golf, you can be sure more times than not, and like every single time except maybe once or every single time in general, that they're making the cut. They're going to get you there. They'll at least won't bury your lineups for the most part right away. Whereas Mike Trout can go over 5 tonight. Christian Yelich can go over 5 tonight, and they're the most expensive players on the slate from the batting perspective. Your starting pitcher can get lit up, which has been happening a lot more this year than ever before. It's by far baseball for me. I like Pena as a cheap option, says Raz. Yeah, I think Pena, again, he'd probably be that 5th player in my pitching player pool. Just because he's cheap, he does have strikeout stuff, but there's obviously concerns there. He does give up home runs. He doesn't go deep into the games. Toronto is not as bad of this matchup as we've been seeing out of them. They're approaching around league ISO just because Biggio's down there. They have more depth. Been a few months. Wow, you've been watching for 6 months, Wayne. Yeah, so I started this back in like October, so you've been probably watching since I started or so. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the support, man. MLB hardest to figure out for me, definitely. Yeah, I would say MLB too, but it's not my first sport. Yeah, no. For me, I like NBA number 1 for DFS, NFL number 2. Obviously, NFL for making content and just overall once a week, the anticipation, if you're not counting showdowns, is like by far the most fun if you're looking at it from that way because there's more anticipation. But I just like the daily aspect. I like the grind of the NBA season. It's much more projectable. And you could actually play cash. And NBA and WNBA are the only 2 sports where I feel actually confident playing cash. So it goes NBA, NFL, WNBA, and then probably golf before MLB for me. When is Game 7 going to be played? Toronto versus Golden State, says Nas, hater of the year. Maybe next year. Probably not, though. I had Woodland, Rose, and Molinari and still lost all my entries. Same order for me too, Sal. Yeah. So I played. I got some pushback just because I didn't release an open video for the major, which trust me, I really wanted to. Really busy week just in terms of not only content but real life stuff going on. So I didn't even research the U.S. Open, at least out of just listening to Pat Mayo and just like trying to figure out where the herd was going to go based on a lot of the stuff he says. You can kind of lean ownership. But I didn't look into Fantasy National. I didn't look into my own data sheets really until Wednesday evening at like 6 p.m. By the time I kind of understood where I wanted to go with the slate, it was like 9 p.m. So I wasn't going to make a video when the thing starts 12 hours later and most people are sleeping. It just wouldn't have made too much sense. But I did land on Woodland in my lineups, not because I thought he was going to win the whole thing, but he was just a good value for his spot, and a lot of things graded out well for him in his approach, a lot of things. Had Louis, which looked great for 3 days, but yeah, I had Justin Thomas, which wasn't great, right? You get up to Justin Rose there, and it's a whole different story. Got a 5 out of 6 with that lineup because of Justin Thomas. Pretty much saved cash because of Gary Woodland playing phenomenal, but 6 out of 6 was so high, and I didn't get there, so because of Justin Thomas. So not the greatest weekend, but definitely didn't lose at all. Cool. So that's it. That was a quick video. I don't know how many people actually tuned in for this. Wow, 12 people. That's not bad. It topped out. Okay, cool. So I'm going to end this. Hopefully this is seen on the playback. I want people to comment, reach out to me on Twitter in terms of podcasts, what you're looking for. Do you want more interviews from people in the industry, more strategy-based interviews, personal background-based interviews? Do you want just recaps of the week in general in DFS? A podcast will be coming. Ideally, I want them to be shorter episodes around the 30-minute mark or less. But I'm definitely flexible there. So excited about that stuff. Excited about the summer. Best of luck today in the MLB. Maybe we'll do sort of this live. See you tomorrow. Thanks. Yeah, no problem, Raz. Maybe we'll do more of a live before lock tonight for the MLB slate. Not positive on that, though. Probably take it easy. No WNBA today. So peace out, gang. Congrats on the 5K too, buddy. See you later. Thank you. I appreciate that. Have a great day, everybody. Great start to your week. Crush it. Peace.